some more stuff, I know, Cheryl, to talk about pertaining to the role of the grants consultant. But what I wanted to mention, because I don't think we talked about it any further along, is that Title III and Title V grant opportunities are not normally ones that are faculty initiated, but if your college is considering pursuing a Title III or a Title V grant, the U.S. Department of Education grants, there are definitely ways to carve out areas in those grants that would be appropriate for increasing and retaining STEM students.
Right.
Am I right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's one of the things that I wanted to say. Title III is just strengthening institutions, and Title V is Hispanic serving institutions. But we do talk about it a little later on, but I think that you really want to know what your college is doing and pursuing in terms of grants to be able to become part of something that is more massive than just your project.
Right.
And there is one, Berwick Manhattan Community College is developing all online classes for, I don't know, 88 million programs, and they're doing it through a Title V grant.
Mm-hmm. The current one that we were just talking about before the session that I was involved with at Santa Barbara City is almost, I would say, probably 80 to 90% technology related. So it's everything from integrating technology into the classroom using more cutting edge types of modalities, but probably 80 to 90% of that particular grant that's serving the entire institution is technology related. So it's allowing the institution over a span of 5 years, and it's about $3.5 million spread out over 5 years. So it's sustainable funding. It also provides, as Laura mentioned, the opportunity for you to really build your capacity as an institution and still benefit your particular programs as well, with the overall intention of improving student success, retention, persistence, transfer. But in these cases, this is solid, secure money that's sustainable over a fairly long period of time compared to some of our one-year short-term grants. But it will allow you to buy and purchase some of that really high-end technology that maybe can be difficult to purchase under some of the other grants, and be able to integrate that into your institution for the long run. So they're actually really, they're very popular, but they're still really, I think, an untapped resource. So you set up your eligibility in order to apply, and once you've done that, then you're set to start planning for a larger project. In this case, just really quickly, in this case, your eligibility probably is going to be due January, February. So, and if you need more information on how to do that, I can help you with that. But it's a simple application process, and then the grants are usually due maybe June, July, depending on how the Department of Ed is organized this year. So.
And you really do. You want to go to whomever does grants at your institution, be it a grants office or an administrator that knows what's going on. Title III and Title V grants are often written by consultants. That's not uncommon at all, just because they're very, very comprehensive, and people do specialize in them.
And they're extremely competitive. Not that the other grants that you all do aren't, but they're funding at 99.9 points out of 100. That's how competitive they are. And typically about 30 to maybe 40 grants are awarded nationwide. So.
But I wanted to stop and talk about that, because it is really a great way to get some of them. We talked about Pierre a number of times, a number of years ago too. How can I get equipment? How can I get this? How can I get that? That's another opportunity for you. I think this might be about you too, Cheryl. But I think you talked about most of all that's here. What do we have next? Locating funding sources. Again, you want to move from that idea that you had and sort of the expanded idea, and you can do some searching for funding sources. I mostly use online. Other than some of my professional organizations and the things that I do through that, I'm looking online, and I'm looking at places that you guys can all look at as well. The technology grant news is not something I currently use, but it's a very modest fee. It comes out regularly, and I think that's one appropriate to this group of faculty and things.
Those are all live links too.
Oh, okay. Oh, maybe we can go back. I don't know how much.
Just like
okay. That one is good. It used to come out in book form, and that was one of the things I was going to tell Nick about. Yeah, good. The Federal Grants Wire, grants.gov, there's a, depending on what level of engineering you're doing or whatever it is, but there's professional organizations may offer some funding opportunities, or it's just a good way to find out what is being funded among your other peers. I know this NSF group is a pretty close-knit network, but there are other things. I know I'm on the ASCE, is that it? Electrical Engineers? Yeah, I'm on their website, their listserv. And so there's lots and lots of opportunities that you can involve yourself in your own searches for funding, or you can work with the grants office or a grants consultant to help find or locate those additional sources of funding. I think what we're going to talk about next is some California opportunities. How many from California? Excellent. Cheryl, what's going on?
What's happening that you don't already know about?
I guess this is the next one. Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that? No. Okay.
No. Oh, well, yeah. One word. When we were here last year, the outlook for funding at the federal level looked phenomenal. I mean, the spotlight was on community colleges, and the good news was there was tons and tons of money. It came out in stimulus money. It came out in the Department of Labor funding opportunities. This year, not so. We don't know what the budget's going to look like. Cheryl, I think, has a couple of projections for some of the agencies that we can look at. But it's much more difficult now. We just don't know with the changes in, administration, the changes of, legislation and things like that. We don't know what it's going to look like. We do know that the spotlight remains on the community colleges. We do know that we have to find additional resources as those institutional resources dry up. We want to look at economic workforce challenges and the mandate to, the hope that we are going to live up to graduating more by 2020. So,
okay.
Next is
hopefully that's not too small. If you're from California, hopefully you know about these opportunities already. Okay, this is through the Chancellor's Office, and as you know, in California, as it is probably in other states, the Chancellor's Office sometimes puts out initiatives that they can actually support and actually fund, and sometimes they say they can. You go through the process, you apply, and all of a sudden they take it back. They said, oh, congratulations, we got this great grant, but we ran out of money and we thought we had it, or we really never had it, and we're so sorry for all that work that you just put in. That's happened to a few of you?
This happened to us.
It's happened to me too. So we still take credit for getting funded, just they didn't have any money for us. So they're going to try this again, and these are initiatives that hopefully, if you are from the state, you've seen. Most of the deadlines are coming up towards the end of January, with the exception of a couple that they've already moved the dates to February. So that's actually a good thing. If you hadn't heard about them, you have a little bit more time still to check on that. A few are basically continuations of current projects. So for instance, if you've already been funded by the SB 70s, that first initiative is basically the renewal process. So if you've been successful, you've met your objectives and your outcomes, your performance outcomes, then you have the opportunity to be renewed. And that is one of the dates that's been moved to February 18th from the end of January, so it gives us a few more weeks. Due to glitches in the online system, I had to put that in just so you know why. It wasn't really for our benefit, it was our Chancellor's Office. 52 are expected to be awarded at $400,000 for 2 years, so you get a little bit of an idea about what the funding range is. Again, as a renewal process, it's non-competitive. All you had to do basically is have met your previous objectives under your prior SB 70s. There's also another initiative, which is a supplemental grant. 31 will be awarded at $230,000, not $230, sorry, $230,000 for 2 years, and those are competitive. All three of these initiatives can be found on the Chancellor's Office site, California Chancellor's Office site. The last one, as Laura mentioned, is right in line, directly in line with the effort for workforce development, job training types of grants. And as before, there's several different industry sectors that it will fund. So depending on what the priority is within your institution, you may apply for one or more of those, depending on the sector that seems to be the highest growth and emerging trends in your area. 20 are expected to be awarded. That deadline is at the end of January, so those are coming up fairly quick. If you have been in one of those previous cycles where you've put together instructional improvement grants or workforce development grants in the past, or you've been funded and then the funding was retracted. You may have a few grants that are already ready to go. And I think that's part of what Laura was suggesting, is that you know what's happening within the institution. If you have proposals already that could be repackaged or just tweaked slightly, then you probably still could make that deadline with just some minor changes. It's an online submission this time, and they've also condensed the formatting so there's not as much redundancy. So it might actually be possible for more community colleges to participate in this with a relatively short timeline. Again, 20 will be awarded $225,000 each for 22 months, so it is very short, with the idea of training, producing technicians that can directly be placed into the workforce. So that's a quick and dirty outline. Do you want to do your ETS?
Yeah, I mean, again, the NSDAT program, I don't think we need to go into any explanation here. That's why we're all here, because of ATE. But one of the other NSF opportunities that has come along that's relatively new is the twos or two-stick, which is replaced at CCLI. I know that there were webinars done, and probably many of you participated in it, but it's a great opportunity that has been sort of reformulated and is pretty appealing to community colleges. Show you some of the things that can be done with the funding. So if you're not aware of it, certainly just the guidelines are out. And, you can go ahead and access those and see if that helps to augment what is already going on as well. Just a little bit more about what they do. Supports a whole array of different types of projects, and it has a couple of different phases that you can apply under. No, I think we'll go back to you, Cheryl.
Okay. We're going to do a talk show after this.
Some.
Sorry, dry run. U.S. Department of Energy, as you'll see in the next couple of slides, there are a couple other federal agencies that will fund what we call kind of cross-cutting measures. Oftentimes the funding is combined from various different agencies to award new grants. And as you may be more comfortable going to something like NSF or Department of Ed, you might find it interesting what kinds of funds are available in some of these lesser known and maybe lesser accessed federal agencies like energy. The Community College Institute is kind of relatively, I don't know if it's new, but it's maybe lesser known, but you can chime in anytime. But in this case, the Institute places students from community colleges in paid internships, which of course is attractive, in the science, engineering, and technology at several different labs across the United States. So it gives them real world experience while they're still completing their undergraduate degrees. In this case too, students are working with not only technicians, but with science and engineers in projects that are related to each particular lab's research programs. Up here, of course, we have a couple national labs, as we do, of course, throughout the United States. So it just reminded me really quickly, too, NASA used to put out some particular grants that were also funding these kinds of efforts that were available to community colleges, but we wouldn't typically think of NASA as a funding source. I was the director of grants at Ellen Hancock College in Santa Maria, and we actually had procured a NASA grant, and it was really in combination with some of these other federal agencies, and it did exactly the same kind of thing. It was just a lesser known source of funds. So sometimes they're kind of buried in some of these programs.
Want to talk about this one?
Yeah.
This Department of Labor initiative through ETA and Employment and Training has been like the big talk among community colleges, because it's for community colleges specifically. It had a release date. The guidelines had a release date of September, October, November, December, January. Now it's January, and now I don't even know. We don't know when it's going to come out, but it's a lot of money. Every state is guaranteed up to $2.5 million, but only community colleges can be the lead agency on these grants. What they are encouraging is that they're you do them in a consortium approach, having lots of partners. We're doing, our state, New Jersey, is looking at doing, we have 19 community colleges in the state, and they're all going together to do something, but I'm not sure what they're doing. So that's it. Now I'm going to leave it there. But they're really it's the Department of Labor working closely with the Department of Education, and it's trying to take the place of the American Graduation Initiative that was proposed by Obama but never got funded. It comes under the Trade Adjustment Assistance Act, and so there is some level of compliance that has to be done with serving industries where there would be workers who are displaced from employment because of exporting the jobs to other countries. The stories I've heard about it are that you just have to identify an industry, and basically that's going to fall into that category of trade adjustment assistance, and then really build around that. It's not really something that's going to be stringently held on to. But the grants provide a lot of opportunity, and again, for involvement from the STEM fields. More than, but the programs that the training should be done in should be short term and should lead to immediate job placement. And so, if you're not currently doing anything beyond 2-year degrees, you might want to look at certificates, but find out from your institution whether they're going after one of these TAACCCTP grants, because chances are they're going to be involved in either an individual submission or a partnership grant, and they're big dollars, and there's a way to work your project into them. They really are. This is the same thing, but again, each state is guaranteed $2.5 million, but you can apply for up to $20 million. I think that's the approach our state is taking, and we're looking at a lot of remediation and retention issues, and we haven't figured out which particular industry we're looking at yet. But this one I think is definitely coming. I don't think this is going away. So find out what's going on.
Does anyone have current funding for any of the green jobs initiatives? Anything in wind, solar, water, anything like that? Okay, obviously that's a huge trend right now, and the STEM programs can also be integrated into a lot of these kinds of proposals. Again, down at some of our community colleges here in the state of California, as there is probably in the other states, there were similar types of initiatives funded last year through the American Recovery Act. They were very short term, they're very quick, you had to be actually ready to respond within weeks with a project, and a lot of folks that I've worked with missed those opportunities because it was just so quick. What they're expecting this year through the Department of Labor, though, is the Green Jobs Innovation Fund to continue at some level. And again, it's a design to complement part of what happened in the American Recovery Act. So if you were able to start some programs then, and the idea was to try to figure out a way to sustain them even after Recovery Act money went away, this might be a way to continue to fund that in the future.
Carrillo and Ohlone, I think, have this.
Carrillo, Ohlone, Santa Barbara City, I know. Cuesta, there's a partnership, I think, between 3 or 4.
Sac City got
Sac
one.
City, okay, great, so several. So if you're interested in pursuing these too, another great way of leveraging your resources or your capacity to go after this is to listen to who has funded grants and be able to draw on and call your contacts and your colleagues and talk to them about what made that successful. It might give you the opportunity to collaborate, it might give you the opportunity to review a past funded grant to see what makes a successful project fundable. That's another resource that Laura and I use a lot as well, sharing our resources with each other. So you just found out about probably 5 or 6 projects right here that have been funded, which is great about going to conferences because then you can call each other later. You can pretty much read the rest here about what the strategies are, what it will fund, pre-apprenticeship, all the way up to career pathways, partnerships, of course, being a real integral part of that as well. Okay, did you want to talk about this, or these are just a few more ETA funding opportunities.
This is what I know about the Career Pathways Innovation Fund. Again, it's a hot button topic for the grants people at the community colleges. It's supposed to take the place of the community-based job training grant, but the only thing with that is, and many of you probably have community-based good opportunity, again, to consider, but it's my understanding that none will be funded in 2011. That the next round of funding for this particular opportunity is going to be 2012.
So the reason you're probably thinking, why did you put that slide up? That doesn't help us, right? There's no money there. One thing it might be interesting though to note is if you had been planning for this, just to bring back more current updated information on legislatively what's happening with that, then it may not be a resource available. So sometimes we may put things up here just to make sure that everyone's kind of current, and depending on your level of involvement in your institutional planning. Department of Ed, of course, probably has more opportunities for STEM than you think. Do you want to talk a little bit more about this, or do you want us just to keep?
No, I think we keep
Okay.
going.
Department of Ed, though, does, as we mentioned, Title III, Title V, some of the FII grants, things like that through the states. But Department of Ed, the expectation for the future funding for this year is, the expectation is that it will be fairly flat funding. So flat funding for programs that you probably are somewhat familiar with, TRIO, Upward Bound, Gear Up, those kind of things should remain untouched. No more money, but no less. Again, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act included $200 million for federal work study, and of course we all know that was a one-time event, so that has something to do with the funding remaining flat.